Firstly, I would like to welcome both the speakers, Mr. Abhijit Chakrabarti and Mr. Subhashish Majumdar. Thank you so
Hi,
much for your valuable time.
Thank
hi
you.
Abhijit. Hi Abhijit. Thank you.
So, I would like to start with the vision of a Link CXO and probably then take a lead to the speakers. See, we at a Link CXO, we are building a different world altogether, a community of a CXOs. We wanted to build an exclusive community for senior leaders which can grow, lead, and influence the professional and social world around them. This is what a Link CXO vision is all about. We'll request all of you to spread some words for us so we can get the right persons who are willing to join this platform across the globe. They can join. Over to Subhashish and Bijit. Probably I'll request Mr. Subhashish Majumdar to start. For each speaker will have 20 minutes each, and then 15 to 20 minutes is going to be a Q&A session for all of us.
Sure.
Any queries can be answered in between also or post the speaker's speech is over. So the forum is open. Over to you, Mr. Subhashish Majumdar. So please introduce yourself also at the same time.
Okay. Hi. Thanks a lot, Saurabh, for the kind introduction and for the kind starting words. Very good morning to all of you on a nice Saturday under a situation never seen in the last 100 years. And we are all trying to see how best innovations and startups and things can work in the world. Quickly about myself, I have luckily industry and corporate exposure of around 30 plus years. I have been lucky to work with Tata Group, Hinduja Group, some multinationals, and also a very high, large educational institute at the management ladder. In all my corporate life, I have been honestly introducing products and services and new ideas, except the difference was that yes, I was in the lap of a group and company and it was not mine. But at the same time, I could see the pains which happened during all the launches, which started with even a 5 lakh rupee launch or a 100 crore rupee launch or a 1500 crore rupee launch, which we did over my career span. I'm Ahmedabad, full-time PGP, MBA of a very old batch, and the times were different at that point of time. I have honestly networked with all kinds of entrepreneurs in the last couple of years, more especially when the startup indications happened. I have some of my peers and colleagues who are the top notch in the industry as startups. I'm sure you know some of the names in the industry like Make My Trip promoter, or Naukri.com promoter, or Edelweiss promoter. So they were all around my batches, and some of them are from my batch, like the Bill Desk, for example, and things like that. So I have been very lucky and happy to have the peers of that level who have seen. And the new era is something very, very unique, where we have groups like Oyo and Paytms and all the words which has come and shown the way in a different way, all the light, and in all the areas and the sectors which are important. So with this quick brief, I will like to take you through some of the thoughts which I have, mainly based on my exposure and also some of the thoughts. In fact, recently, it is very coincidental. Last year, almost same time, maybe around October or something, I was giving a complete address to my faculty members who were actually teaching the entrepreneurship team of the MBAs of the final year, to see that what all is required to make entrepreneurship. And it's very coincidental. At the same time, today also I'm doing in a different platform. And I can only tell you what has happened is that entrepreneurship and startups can only grow more and more. As you know very well, the government wants it, internationally it is required. And not only that, you must have seen today's news that the startup has been covered in a different way for the further financing purposes by the RBI's new methodology, etc. So that is already there. But just to go to some of the very, very basics, I'm sure Abhijit is there, who is from Oyo, and they have done a yeoman job in the industry. I know that the tough times are there, but these are very small times. Hopefully this will pass on, and they will have a very, and there are hundreds of such examples already in India. And I personally feel very happy for the generation 3 or 4 which is doing it. I was from a bit earlier generation, but I really feel excited, and I always
RBI Act में around as a first बार में हम करते हैं तो around 10% निकल जाता है.
Hello. Yeah. So can we continue? Can you put the mics off for whoever is speaking, sir?
I'll request the participants please mute.
Who are not? Yeah.
Mr. Subhashish, you can start.
Yeah. So, most important thing which I think is required today, or even at earlier times, to scan the environment and to see that what is a business opportunity. What is the definition of a business opportunity? What it simply means that you are going to create an economic idea for which you want to implement and create a value and a profit. Let us not shy away from that. You're not here for charity. That is for very, very clear. And I think many a times people say, oh, startup hai, so some years you will continue to have losses. Yeah. I think that should not be the goal. You have to decide that, yes, you have to have a business idea, which after you have scanned the environment, you have seen what is attractive, you know that there is a value creation to yourself and to the society at large and to the stakeholders at large, and it should be achievable. Now, that is a very, very crucial word of achievability. And this achievement is differently used in different time frames of the world. It is started from, you all know that the economic situation in India, when honestly I passed out as an MBA from IIM, it was totally different. The 90 to 93, 94 era was totally different, and then the economy started to open out, and then all the entrepreneurship started happening, and some of the big guys have come in from my peers, etc., which I named some of them. So I think what happens is that you have to see the achievability of that service or product, and then the durability of it, that how long it can go. So important thing was that, many times we observe that the funneling is not done properly, because when I say funneling this, that who is you're going to be the partner or the resource person as a team. That is the human issue is very, very important. Let us be very honest about it. It does matter. And it is the human issue. And again, it doesn't matter that you're from the IMs of the world or ITs of the world. It is the human, passionate guys who are there. And again, we have examples across India today that you do not have to be, definitely from the top-notch places. You have to have the passion to build in. You have scanned the environment. You have seen the economic and social requirements of that product and service. And then you have made the team first. The second issue of the resource, I'm just talking a couple of issues on the resource. What is the resource of the financing which you have or which you would plan to risk? I think that is very important. And based on that, you have to take a plan that what kind of product and service you want to launch. You can launch a product and service, which in today's world, as you know, that there are various kind of services and products where you can invest anywhere from 5 lakhs to even a couple of crores. It all depends on what level and scale you want to move. But the important thing is that unless you have the resource ability along with the marketization of the entire thing, you have to be very, very careful that the funneling of the market scan is to be done very clearly. I will give you one or two very important examples from my own life, and some of them are recent one. And since we are in the digital era, I will just tell you one of the classic examples which happened in my earlier Hinduja group. The DTH of the world came in, the digital OTTs, and they came later although, and the entire digitalization started happening. So there was a big issue that shall we invest for a so-called startup company separately to handle a hybrid of a satellite and fiber combined. Now, this was a challenge which honestly I was a very important part of it, and the project was close to 1,500 crores. As I said, since it was not my money, but we have to work like a entrepreneur at that point of time, and the project came to me. And then we realized that Z tried to do it and they stopped it. Another one or two groups went ahead and they stopped it. Then we tried to scan the entire market for 1.5 to 2 years. We did a complete research of the technology. We did a complete research of consumer behavior. We made a research of the B2B across, and this all was done within 8 to 9 months to maximum 1 year to understand that whether this project or whether this kind of a new setup is viable to start. And finally, in 2014-15, we took the plunge, we invested that, and we took it And initially people said that, this project, and we had planned that this project cannot survive if you do not have 2 million consumer base minimum. And then we started from scratch. And I'm happy to say that today that is working and kicking with 3 million plus base. And within 2 years, it was done. And so what actually happens is that the entire pricing communication, request Mr. Mehta to mute if possible the audio. So that was again a classic example. There was again smaller examples of if you want to make a small service launches. Today, if you see many of the areas, I mean, the service products and services happened much later on. It was initially all the technology products or the manufacturing project, which was request Mr. Mehta to put the
Yes,
yeah. So in the other examples which I saw in the services side, again, in the services side, it possibly sometimes you may think the risk is lesser, but what happens is that your B2B relationship, for example, in some cases, which is very important in terms of, I'm sure Abhijit will explain it better, but in many of the services cases, it is a B2B relationship, and also it happens that how much you want in the B2C relationship to move on. I hope all of you understand what we mean by that. So in both the cases, if you try to work out a complete ability to see that whether the uncertainty levels, whether your capital market issue levels, your team and leadership level, etc., has been taken care of. So going further in this same process, you have to ensure how do you harvest once you have started a product or a service launch. When we say harvest means, I mean, what is the step you are planning to take in the next 15 days, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? I think that is the main time we have to be really cautious to see that the time is of essence. And with the time comes the communication. So we have also observed that when a business, new business services or a startup launches, one of the most critical factor becomes the communication. When I mean communication, it is absolute, you can say the complete holistic way of communication, which is so important, and people who have done it are really successful. It simply means you are communicating with the environment, whether it is a political, business, your real estate infrastructure, then you are literally communicating with your internal resources, whether your team, your family even, and all your so-called well-wishers, etc., who have been there to move it. We have seen the very recent example of White JR in the education, which actually started after he was a professional when he started this 1.5 years back. And then he finally made a value to it with whatever investment at a risk. When he was doing that, we all thought that he's taking a huge risk because he was from my industry. As you know, he was a discovery head for a while in the media sector. And then suddenly he said that I will do this, and he put possibly 100 crores or whatever he had to put. And that time the risk was very phenomenal. But what he did is he specifically chose an area which was a need of the day. And the area all of you know very well, which has become a part of the national education policy, for example, the coding. What he did is he started a so-called coding methodology for students and children from class 6th, 8th, 10th, 12th onwards, which becomes a completely eternal part today, or internal part today, for any kind of education as you move on, for scientific education in the science or even commerce. In fact, I was told somebody in commerce also, they have to compulsorily take the coding. So he found the area which was so unique, and finally he got a value of his own group as a startup, which he did 1.5 years back at 2,500 crores or 2,300 crores. I think so. Those examples are always there, but I think we should see that what has gone behind them, because they were all early startups. Yes, of course, with the experience and exposure, but the experience and exposure may or may not help in many of the cases if you have not done your homework of these issues. Or not only homework, it is at that once you have decided with the complete funneling of the atmosphere that you are going ahead with the requirement of a service or product, which is possibly can give a value in next 1 year, 2 year, 3 year time. You will do your analysis for the ROI. You will do your analysis for what value it will come to you, in what time it will come, and that should be realistic. That is not meant for VCs, sir. I think many of the startups today make the documents for the VCs and the funding requirements only. And I have also seen in my career, I'm sure some of you may agree on that, that many of those documents and the Excel sheets are just meant for paper and for getting the value in the money, and they are not really practical to be achieved. In fact, I just got such a document from somebody from Kenya, and I told him that, I mean, what you are showing is 300 or 500% jump. It is possibly you are just trying to ensure attraction of some investment, but do you really think? Then he got back and he now says that, yes, possibly I have to rework the entire startup process, which was on a tourism industry, for example, in Kenya. So I think today we have examples where you have to be realistic at your own self, which is very important. The funding, etc. can, I mean, again, we have examples across the world and across India that the funding can come from your own family resources, from your own resources, or how much you can take as a debt, how much you want to take as a equity. Equity always in the beginning means that you have to have your trusted people around who are really trustworthy. It can be your own family members, or your really people who should not get into a situation where your entire resource, etc., may have gone in a different direction. So I think that is to be taken care of. And then obviously, when you come to that level in the planning session, you have to ensure that what do you do with the base of your customers? How do you handle, who is your, I mean, customers is a very generic term, but who is your going to be the partners who will accept the product or service? Who are your vendors and suppliers in terms of all the requirements? And there is where you have to do a bit of micromanagement, that what can be the credit terms, what can be the financial terms, how do you make your own cash flow system more durable? I know sometimes it may look that, these, and many times you must have observed that whether it's a startup or business, you think the paper is given very neatly by a big consultancy group of the big four, whether EY and PwCs and maybe the other one, McKinsey's of the world, etc. But what is realistically required is that the same exercise somebody who is going to be a startup has to do, like he was kind of trying to pass out from a civil services exam, or trying to give a CAT exam, or trying to give a GMAT for a large university. I mean, that kind of a passion should be there, that this has to be not failing, because each and every micro nuts and bolts has to be there. Who will be your shareholders, how the general public and communication to the media, government and regulators should happen, and so on and so forth. I have another important plan to see that mainly, although was meant for R&D, which we did for a manufacturing kind of a situation, where, or it's a combination of service and manufacturing, where the R&D and the innovations has to be taken care of in today's world in a massive way. Today, in every technology way, I mean, we are talking to somebody and we realize that today they are jumping with the startup within 2 months to AI levels, the artificial intelligence level. Why? Because they said, I will invest amount of X amount in this AI, but it is going to give me a benefit of at least 3X in the just 1 year, 1.5 year I planned. I think these are the areas which has to be seen very, very consciously. And again, we cannot shy away that, these are new technologies. Why should we adopt? These are sometimes, coming from the West, robot. I think nothing is new for India. India has been achieving the newest things of the areas, and it has to be innovation in your own Indian way. That is very, very important for the all youngsters or the new generation who have entered the startup era in the last 2, 3, 5 years. And we are very happy to see the success stories of the various group and see how passionate they have been and how they have managed their R&D and innovation, how they have managed their support services, how they have managed their chain, supply chain and logistics, how they have managed their IT and training and the IT innovations, how they have managed their complete trading and the business distribution, for example, which again, it was an old time thing that, I mean, for any product or service, today you need a distribution ability to handle it. Again, coming from a very recent work which I have been doing for last couple of months on the education technology area. So I realized that the companies are trying to launch their own education technology. And when I told one of the startups which I was trying to advise them, I said, you have to please convert them to a distribution model. It will not work, because you are trying to say that can you achieve to have 500 guys across the country to start with? You cannot. But they were very shy to give the commissions, etc., because they say margin is thin. How do you do? So we have to make them rework the entire business setup and the entire, you can say, the cash flow system and sheet to see that what is required today in terms of the pricing, or it is a issue of volume versus price. I think you have to be very careful when you do such kind of startups to see that if there is a market of volume, please go for the volume and work out a pricing with any kind of a distribution chain and any kind of distribution setup, whether it's a 2-layer or 3-layer, to do it. I'm sure today that, again, the groups which I quoted, and I obviously observe them very closely, whether it's a Make My Trip or even OYO for that matter, and other groups, I very closely observe that how the strategic changes happen. Same thing which happens with PTM, same thing which happens many a times with some of the earlier ones which happened. I think that is very important to see, that you have to be constantly be at your nimble footed to go on changing some of the transcripts of the managing the business in terms of the pricing, in terms of the volume versus price, in terms of the distribution strategy, in terms of the partnership and franchising, in terms of having, in today's world, having whatever you can convert to online process versus the offline process, how you ensure to make in the online the business viability in terms of making the logistics and the supply chain. So if it is a product, how it should reach, if it is a service, then how he can avail, and so on and so forth. So it is important for all these areas to handle this in that way. And then we come to the overall full cycle, which again I have seen from my various experiences, that initially we said that there is a planning phase where you have to ensure that the analysis, identification, ROI analysis, your prioritization, your scope assessment, all has been done, which is called a planning phase. I hope everybody has done it. Without that, you should not even touch a startup project if you're not sure about it. Then there is something which we call a design phase. What design phase simply means that you are going to reduce the risk and have an incremental rapid deliveries to convert to the level of the final supplies and final viable to get the cash back, which can mean any data conversion, it can mean any first initial project, or you can say pilot project kickoff, you can say the project planning, and you can say the SOPs, etc., which can be there. Then there is something quickly, and these are very rapid fire things. And then there is immediately there is a development phase which talks of scalability, reusability, and the focus on quality. So now the development phase is something which again will depend within a period of just, it can start within 1 month period, or it can start in 2 month period, but you have to keep the cash flow planning accordingly. You have to, again, I have an example from a garment exporter who is launching a new set of garments in Europe, actually, from the Indian sources. And he is absolutely, I was very happy to see his, as of now, what he has done. Innovatively, what he has done, he has not taken any people, except he's working with 3 or 4 people right now. He has a plan to ensure the volume goes to X level, where he wants to include immediately 50 people on board on a single 15 days time. And that's an absolutely crazy strategy I think he has, because he says that he said I could have done with these guys coming in earlier, but I have tried to do with some of the distribution and wholesalers and all that, whom I will give a commission, and then possibly after 1 month or 2 months, I'm going to onboard 50 guys across Europe, and then they will obviously work along with the friends. So it will be a 3x or 5x phenomena. I think those are the strategies which has to be seen once you have actually gone deep into the system, that you are going to possibly move ahead with that. And the third and final thing is actually the stability and maintenance and ensuring a flow phase, which obviously will come with very many challenges. These kind of challenges which we have never saw 100 years back, till 100 years may come in, and still you have to be so resilient to ensure that you can manage that phase. You have to have the support systems, you have to have enough cash flow backup, you have to have the so-called loyalty and the touch of the consumers of both B2C, B2B, your vendors, that they cannot shy away from you. You, in fact, from the people angle also, many people, I mean, in today's situation, I should give you this example, that in many of the companies, when you are talking of so-called, people are hiving off, etc., in many strategic companies, even at startup levels, what they are saying is that you continue to be my partner, but I am just considering you for a couple of months to work on some specific project parameters where I will continue to give commission, etc. But I will ensure that you will be the part of my full-time ability and you are not off my system. I think those kind of things will work out because everybody understands that they may have to undergo difficult times. And as long as there is a ability of initiation and conversion to a value which is valuable to both the employees and the company as a whole or the startup group, and ultimately to the end users who are actually using the product and services, can be of great value. I have many other points on this and many more examples also. So if you guys want, I mean, I can quote examples which I had done in 2000, for example, when we launched a chemical product which was as simple as to bring down something which was used in home hygienes from say 5 liters to just 10 grams. So it was unbelieving for that matter. And it was again given as a separate division where I was handling the startup project completely. And I was told that if you cannot launch it, please leave it and we'll give it back to France from where it was coming. And honestly, I had a terrible tough time. And those were the days in 2001, 2002, when finally I had to communicate all over the country in various events. I chose the events and the demonstrations in that kind of product to show. And I said that, okay, I will have an investment plan, which was like my own project, not more than X amount, which was very small amount, to have only the demonstrations and the direct demonstration events, which will ensure. And then I started getting orders. And then that product has become very phenomenal in India. I hope all of you are aware that today, when you do a cockroach control, most of the urban metro cities, they just use a gel product. I hope many of you are aware of that. And that gel product, which is used instead of the so-called earlier flits and paints, were brought by me from France. And I had a really tough time for 2 years. And we did the project, I can tell you, in just a smallest amount possible, and it succeeded. So I think what happens is there are a lot of new innovations which comes in a group. There are a lot of innovations which comes completely as a different way in a company, which, for example, I always salute groups like Make My Trip or OYO. We have reformed some of the industry in a different way. And there are such other examples which has reformed the industry to a new innovative way, and they have been successful. So I think such more things will come. So we will carry on and on. So I think the time is going. So I give the mic to Mr. Saurabh for further continuation. Thanks a lot to hearing all of you.
Insightful, and it's great to hear and a great learning experience from you. Over to Abhijit now. Abhijit, thank you so much. I'll just give a quick introduction of yours. Mr. Abhijit is a VP from BrainPan. He's ex-HP and Pernod Ricard OYO founder and the anonymous reader, also one of the TEDx speaker. Mr. Abhijit, you can quickly introduce yourself.
I'll quickly do that, Saurabh. Thank you, Subhashis sir, for a very detailed explanation of what goes in business and startups. I think it's very insightful. Like Saurabh has already introduced me, I am currently the Vice President of Strategy for BrainPan. BrainPan is an early stage bootstrapped startup in the content, digital marketing, and creativity space. We also do a bunch of technology products. We are coming up with some great products that we believe can scale globally, but we are starting small, right? Before this, I was the digital marketing lead for HP, the computer company, and I used to take care of the whole of India geography. Before that, I was part of Pernod Ricard. Pernod Ricard is the world's second largest alcohol company, and I used to handle marketing for brands like Chivas Regal, The Glenlivet, Royal Stag, Imperial Blue, Blender's Pride, Absolute Vodka. So I used to take care of the digital marketing mandate for all of these brands. Before that, I was part of OYO, like Sir has already mentioned by now. And I was one of the first 100 employees of the company. And I worked closely with the initial team. The team was very small. So a lot of things that I've learned in my career, it's thanks to my experience working with Ritesh and Kavi and my bosses at OYO, right? Before that, I was part of a completely different industry. I was part of a company called Li & Fung. Li & Fung is the world's largest supply chain management and trading company, worth $20 billion+. And I used to take care of sourcing, merchandising, and supply chain for that organization. I worked for 6 years in that company. What this all has given me, these 13, 14 years of experience, it has given me a well-rounded perspective of having worked in startups, having worked in large organizations, and at different levels, different capacities, and different kind of mandates, different kind of budgets. So it has kind of given me a very well-rounded perspective of what goes inside and outside of the business, supply side and demand side, people problems, finance problems, and all. but obviously I'll try to make it as brief as I can. Like Saurabh mentioned, I also have been to TEDx, but I did not go to TEDx as a speaker for, in relation with the work I do professionally. I actually went there because one of my hobbies really picked up. So I am the founder of a platform called The Anonymous Writer. I have at various times been part of many different platforms. I was also a part of the Logical Indian platform, which is again a social media giant. I have catered to content for almost 2 crore people so far across various platforms that I have been part of. So I come from a place where I have handled supply chain management, I have merchandised, I have traded, I have handled logistics, I have handled content creation, I'm a writer myself, I have spoken, I have taught, I have mentored people. I have also done marketing for the last 5 years. I have been doing marketing, and now I'm in a strategy role where I'm helping my organization expand to various business verticals and geographies. So yeah, so this was my introduction. Saurabh told me that almost half of the people attending this are entrepreneurs and the rest of you are employees in companies. But I believe you have a fair bit of interest in business and that's why you are here. I just wanted to kind of go one step back and talk about, so while Sir mentioned a lot of things about companies and startups, I really want to touch upon one important fact. See, if you're really serious about a business, right, and if you're really building a startup or planning to build a startup, the first word that you should remove from your dictionary is the word startup itself. You're not a startup, you are a business, right? The whole reason you exist is to make money, right? I know I'm sounding way too capitalistic right now, but that's what it is exactly, right? You exist because you have a business idea. You believe your business idea has a market. You believe that market has paying customers, and you believe you can reach those customers and sell your products profitably and continuously. Right? Apart from this, there's no other definition of a business. You can kind of, like in Hindi we say, "Kaan yahan se pakdo ya wahan se pakdo," doesn't make a difference. It's a business that you are running. You want at all times to add value. Make sure that that value addition finds customers. Make sure that you find the customer at the right price for yourself, whether it's through marketing or events or any kind of promotions or purely through word of mouth. And how does it all help you realize your profits over a period of time? This is a very basic textbook definition of what a business is. Please forget the word startup. If you can just throw it out of your dictionary, that would be awesome. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Because having been part of startups, big and small, successful and not so successful, large companies, what doesn't change from company to company is how businesses work. And like Oyo is a great example. If you just see, even at Oyo, right, apart from Ritesh, who's a college dropout, everyone else, every other business leader at Oyo comes from a pedigree college and with great experience in different industries. There are people from ITC. So Oyo's COO is an ex-ITC person. Oyo's chief growth officer has been to Harvard. There are people from Stanford. Most of the top brass is from IIT or IIM, right? These people have worked in sectors such as finance, oil and gas, even hospitality. The only reason why people with this much experience and from pedigree colleges, they start off with other businesses and then they join a startup is because they know they can add value. So if entrepreneurs who are hiring leaders for their companies don't think of their own company differently, why should anyone? So the word startup is something that you should totally throw out of your dictionary right now and start treating your business as a business. And when I say business, it could be a shop. It could be a cab that you own and drive, right? It could be it could be a restaurant, right? It could be a food delivery service. It does not matter. Anything and everything you're doing it for money. You're doing it for profit. Yes, there could be some greater good attached to it, but you're not really an NGO, right? And so you will still have to make sure that you are continuously churning profits out of your business enterprise. Otherwise, nothing else makes sense, right? So I just wanted to make sure that I'm starting off at the note that I am comfortable in, because I really feel this is something that people get wrong a lot of times. People think startups are cool. People think startups are sexy. They could be, but no failed startup has ever been called sexy, right? We only say a startup like Uber, Airbnb, these are sexy startups, right? But have you ever heard a failed startup say we were sexy and we failed? No, it doesn't happen that way. So before you start calling your startup cool or hot or interesting or you're passionate about blah, 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 make sure that you have a business idea that has a market, that has paying customers. Extremely important, right? I'll give some examples of what exactly I'm trying to say here. We've all heard about Elon Musk, right? And Elon Musk is an inspiration for everyone. He has made sure that he touches upon the lives of people in extremely innovative ways. So be it electric cars, be it sending people to space, and eventually he wants to go to Mars and make a colony there, be it solar energy, be it Neuralink, right? Elon Musk doesn't just work with software. He made sure that he produces, manufactures products. Software could be a part of those products, but he doesn't restrict himself to what is convenient. He really pushes himself. And that's the way Elon Musk functions today. But do you know about his first startup ever? His first startup was called Zip2. And what was Zip2? Zip2 started decades ago when companies were not on digital media at all. Nobody had a website. So Zip2, which comprised of Elon Musk and his brother, they used to code at night. They built their website, and during the day, they used to do business development. They used to go to small businesses in their cities, in their towns, and they used to tell them, look, the online wave is hot. Very, very soon, everyone will be online, and they will want to discover your businesses on the internet. But you cannot build your own business because it's complicated. So let us do it for you. We will give you an online presence. We will integrate a map. We will integrate your phone numbers. We will talk about your products, etc. But the simplicity of the idea was such that they approached small businesses who really could not have done it. But what was the solution? The solution was, if I am a grocery store, right? My website would be called zip2.com/grocery store. So essentially, they were just creating pages on their website and they were selling it at a premium. So once they had a website in place and once they had coded the thing with great simplicity, they were able to sell that repeatedly, right? So whatever I mentioned so far, I think Zip2, Elon Musk, this particular example sums it up beautifully. There was a business idea, right? There was a marketplace available where they could sell it. They were paying customers because to just add a new web page on a website doesn't take a lot. Maybe a few cents, maybe a few rupees worth of effort, right? But the companies that they were approaching could pay them a few $100s for the same service. Hugely profitable and immensely scalable because the number of small businesses in America is huge, right? Every nook and cranny has a small business. This is what a business looks like. This is a startup. This is a good business idea delivered well. Just two people bootstrapped it. And with the money Elon Musk made from Zip2, when he sold it off, he started a company called X.com. X.com used to be the biggest competitor of PayPal. PayPal was started by Peter Thiel, we all know. PayPal and X.com combined, Elon Musk was booted out from the company. He finally sold his stake and got billions of dollars. Possibly millions. I'm not sure what the exact amount was, but it was a few $100 million for sure. With that money, Elon Musk did not know what exactly to do with it. So he decided to pump the money back into his next set of business ideas. And what were those business ideas? Those were 3 business ideas initially, and now there are many more. Those ideas were SpaceX, Tesla Motors, and Solar City. Now, Solar City eventually, I think, merged with Tesla. It still exists as a business function. But with the money he has been making with all of this, he can now do anything. So Elon Musk is now working on Neuralink. We all know that. I mean, a few days back, there was a lot of buzz around it. Neuralink attempts to connect electronics, communication through wires and batteries and stuff with the human brain, so that whatever we are thinking, we can document it and we can upload information onto our brains. That is Elon Musk's long-term agenda. And finally, he's also working on a small side project called The Boring Company. Traffic in large American cities is very bad. And Elon Musk, instead of building flyovers which are noisy, they cause pollution, dust flies around, lots of approvals needed, not earthquake safe. There can be traffic jams on flyovers also, and flyovers can collapse. Instead, he is boring a tunnel from one place to another to ease the flow of traffic, right? Now, the way Elon Musk started needs to be remembered. Today, we are harping about what a great deal of money he has made. He's the world's third richest man, but he started by selling website URLs to small businesses for a few $100s every year. And that work was done by him and his brother. They started from a small office. Elon Musk had to break up because he couldn't devote time to his then girlfriend. This is what a startup is. This is how businesses ought to work. Now you can add as much glamour, as much money, as much VC funding to this as you want. You can call it a technology startup. You can call it a blah blah startup. It doesn't make a difference. If you have an idea that is simple, that is profitable, and that is scalable, that is probably the only thing you will ever need, right? A lot of layers can be added later on. I mean, you can add a layer of sales, right? So if customers don't come to you, you start selling to them, and that becomes sales. But if people don't buy, even if you reach out to them, then you have to do something called marketing. In order to do marketing, you have to create your brand assets, and that requires you to create a brand. But I think we are all pretty sure that Elon Musk's businesses have never tried to do marketing. He doesn't do that. So he launched a Cybertruck, and the way he did marketing was that he launched a very quirky looking vehicle, and he said, this vehicle has bulletproof glass, and let me show you. And on stage, in front of thousands of people, he tries to break the glass with a sledgehammer, and the glass actually breaks. The glass of the Cybertruck breaking during a live demonstration, do you think it was by chance, or did Elon Musk plan it all? Because a Cybertruck's glass breaking on being hit by a sledgehammer, the way I look at it, this is gold class marketing. Because the kind of visibility, the kind of media output he got for free because the glass broke. He could never have bought it off, or maybe he could have, but he got it all for free, right? And when you think of your business, this is probably what you should think of. And Elon Musk is not the only example, because it's easy to say that out of billions of people, one successful person has built $1 billion enterprise. So that's an exception. It's not the case. If you look at Jeff Bezos, right? Jeff Bezos, we all know, one of the richest people in the world, owns Amazon. How did he start? So I will not talk a lot about every founder, but you should read about what Jeff Bezos did, right? And his story is not very different from Elon Musk's. There's always that one strong business idea that we all work for. We feel really strongly about it, and we work towards it. We build a product or a service. We find a market for it. We find customers for it. We communicate for it, and we sell it. And that's it. Business is that simple. And anyone who says it's complicated doesn't know how business works, right? I just wanted to make sure that I'm starting off in the right way, because I've been to a lot of these webinars and people talk about a lot of jargon, which I, not being an MBA, don't understand all that, right? I have not done an MBA. What I understand is how to make sure that products are created and how they are sold. That is it, right? So while we are talking about businesses, since half of you may not be entrepreneurs yet, and you could be looking for that golden opportunity, right? What's the next big thing? I want you guys to remember the example that Sir gave. He talked about White Hat Junior, right? It's a beautiful example, because the people working on that particular business idea actually knew what they were doing. They felt strongly about the whole aspect of teaching people how to code. Not many people know this, but White Hat Junior, I think almost 99% of their instructors are female. They're all women, right? And people don't know this. White Hat Junior is a great example of a company doing the right thing at the right time. But now, today, if all of you start thinking of a competition for White Hat Junior, you will flop. You cannot beat Byju's today. Byju's is soon going to be, I don't know, maybe the most valuable one of the most valuable companies in the world. The way India's story has been unfolding, and globally coding is becoming more and more important. I think Byju's, with White Hat under its wing, it can become as valuable as it wants to be. Right? So if you think that today starting a company like Byju's or White Hat Junior is going to be profitable, you are wrong. Right? Byju's will kill you off. You will not be able to buy even a single keyword through SEM searches. It's impossible today, right? So how do you reach your customers if there's Byju's, right? So think back about what you feel most strongly about, rather than thinking about what is the next big market opportunity. Because if there's a market opportunity that you know nothing about, you will fail anyway, right? Don't try to build a very, very large business, because you don't need that larger business to be happy, right? Your job is not to build the largest business in the world and to compete with the likes of Amazon or Tesla Motors or I don't know, Google, right? That is not what you're meant to do probably. But possibly, maybe you are meant to start a very small B2B SaaS kind of a business, which will have just 100 paying customers, but all 100 of them will be paying you millions of dollars. So you will make $1 billion anyway. Right? So this is a mindset shift that we need to do. As people, as youngsters, we have been exposed to a lot of B2C advertising and B2C brands. Why? Because we are young. When you're not even 30, you don't know what B2B systems look like. What are the products they sell? We don't know that, right? And after years of working and entering the workforce and becoming consumers of B2B products ourselves, we realize that B2B is a vertical that is worth tapping. Right? So I would say start thinking B2B if you can, rather than just B2C, because no doubt B2C is sexy. The kind of valuations you get in B2C are humongous. But the largest failures in the world are also B2C. WeWork is a great example, right? What was WeWork exactly? Was it a B2B or a B2C? Most people will agree that it was a hybrid, but a lot of the paying customers were actually very, very small businesses. So they were almost equivalent to a B2C in paying capacity. If I'm paying 16,000, 17,000 rupees for one WeWork seat in Gurgaon, right? I'm as good as a B2C customer, because a TV will cost more than that. They're not really a B2B business that way. And due to various malpractices, WeWork failed, right? And there are many other examples of businesses now failing. They tried to scale up as fast as they could have, fueled by VC money. VCs probably are at fault in some way, but the biggest culprit right now is the whole mindset. We want to reach everyone. We want to be superheroes. We want to solve the biggest problems in the world. In my humble view, the biggest problems in the world may not need to be solved by you specifically. Can you solve the small problems? A small problem worth solving could be, can you make sure that the local agricultural supply chain gets higher efficiency, so that the farmers who are selling their produce at 2 rupees a kilo, they can sell it for 2.5 rupees per kilo. And the buyers who are buying that product for 10 rupees a kilo, they can buy it for 9 rupees a kilo. And in between, you can make sure that you take about 5% commission out of that. Thousands of tons of fresh produce is sold every single day in any large city. If you can build a business out of that, then you don't need to be an Amazon, right? Think about that. Even if you strongly feel about making a huge difference to people, and you feel that simply giving 50 paisa per kilo extra to a farmer isn't strong enough a motivation for you, think about all the farmers that commit suicide. Now it's motivating, right? If I tell you that there is enough opportunity in India today to work in the agricultural supply chain sector, in the cold chain sector, in the cold storage sector, you will have no clue. And the reason is because you have not been exposed to that ecosystem. When we think of startups, we think of an app. So we are either learning React Native or Flutter. Right? That's what we do. We are trying to learn various coding languages. We think, oh, that's cool. Let's learn Python. Let's do a 400 rupee course from Udemy. Let's learn 2 or 3 fresh coding languages and let's give it a shot. Not a bad idea. But there is more opportunity beyond that. You don't really have to be in that particular segment. Don't really have to be a B2C company. Don't really have to think about scaling up and reaching millions of people with billions of dollars worth of funding, right? So I think my time is up. I wanted to just talk about the mistakes that fresh, very, very raw startups generally make. It starts with how startups decide what to pursue and how they look at themselves. This is just about 5% of what I could talk about, but I think for the benefit of everyone, and because I have to go. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. But I again want to leave you with these 3 thoughts. Okay, you don't always have to be a B2C, sexy, scalable, $1 billion worth of a business. Doesn't need to be that. It could be a small, very, very localized company in the B2B sector. In even the B2G sector, the governments today need so much, and you are not thinking about that. Right? That is a great sector to be in. Number 2, you do not need to be a superhero and solve every single problem in the world, right? And number 3, there are inspirational examples of business leaders who do not think of their startups like startups, and neither should you, right? So I'll just end my time now. Saurabh, back to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Abhijit. I'll just say, wow. Learn from the mistake of others. You can't live long enough to make them all yourself. It's one of the famous saying, and you guys, both the speakers, Mr. Subhashish and Abhijit, proved us on this platform that we can learn a lot from the mistake of others. Once again, I thank you, both of you, and I keep the forum open for all the participants for any kind of queries to both the speakers. Ganesh, you had a question. There's a question from Mr. Abhishek. He wants to know what is the view on startups post-COVID to Abhijit and Mr. Subhashish. So I'll request Mr. Abhijit to just give a quick view, and then Subhashish also can share his view.
Sure. Let me just check if so I'm not on mute. Look, so again, this question can have any number of answers, right? You really have to, as I said, think of a business. Don't think of a startup. Please, I request you, I beg you, I urge you, right? It's a humble request. Don't treat your business like a startup. You are a business. Do you think Dhirubhai Ambani said, my business is a startup? I don't know. I don't think he did, right? There is always going to be business opportunity. There's always going to be things breaking and going wrong. You will always find the right idea. And when you do, you won't even need funding for it. Funding is not always required, right? In my mind right now, I have 5 startup ideas that I can start for less than 50,000 rupees. The only reason I'm not doing it is because I am already part of a startup and I'm doing well, right? But there are a lot of ideas that you can work on, right? Especially in a post-COVID world. There are sectors that are bleeding right now. Hospitality. I'm from an OYO background, right? And sir also spoke about Make My Trip and OYO. The hospitality sector today is bleeding badly. And I can tell you that if you are good with something as basic as digital marketing is the most basic of anything. It's not rocket science. There are tools available for everything. There are tutorials available, right? If you can use digital marketing or any other kind of tactical expertise and help hotels, restaurants, cafes convert even 5% extra, you're talking about a possible $1 billion+ of impact. And even a 10% commission is worth $100 million. Right? So look for sectors today that are bleeding badly. In fact, I'll give a very, very weird example, and weird because I don't really think that this particular person I'm going to talk about is very genuine. There's a guy in America called Tai Lopez, right? Tai Lopez is similar to Dan Lok. All of these guys, or maybe Grant Cardone. So there are many people in America who sell some kind of a course, and I don't believe in them. But what Tai Lopez is doing with his millions of dollars that he has, he's now buying off retail chains in America. Small retail stores, not mom and pop, but good retail giants, which used to flourish before Amazon came about. And now because of COVID, Americans are not going to retail stores at all. And companies which were worth $1 billion+ are now worth 10, 20, $30 million. And Tai Lopez with his partners is buying up these, almost wholesale. His plan is to create an online destination for all of these brands that can no longer sustain themselves offline. That's a great business to have even in India, right? Food as an industry will always remain relevant because people have to eat. areas like mental health, even physical health, because of the lockdown and even before that, and also be mindful of what's happening in the environment immediately next to you. A lot of people due to COVID lost their jobs. A lot of celebrities died, right? And it's all happened because of some mental health issue or the other. A mental health startup today, a mental wellness startup today can work wonders, right? So again, you really have to stop thinking of the next $10 billion idea. You have to think of how can you invest something as low as 50,000 rupees and recover 2 lakh rupees out of it. How do you convert that 2 lakhs into 10 lakhs and then maybe a crore? And that's about it. Why would a normal human being need more than a crore anyway on an annual basis? What will you do with all that money? Think of sustainable small businesses. And then if you are lucky and if your product really resonates, or if it somehow becomes a viral sensation, then you will obviously make a lot of money. But that should not be the core motivation. So before COVID, post-COVID, doesn't make a difference. Businesses remain businesses. There are gaps that you can fulfill, and that's your business idea.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. Mr. Subhashish, what's your view on this?
Yeah, quickly, I think Abhijit has already summarized all the points rightly. Just to quickly tell you two things which I keep in mind, again, from whatever I understand. Yes, the examples of outside India are definitely very, very unique, and they have done a lot of works. But as Abhijit rightly said, let us seek within yourself in this own country what all works. And as you rightly mentioned, that many a times we do not see the nearest ones, like the agriculture issue, like the supply chain issue, like the simplest healthcare or physical issue, like in today's situation the education issue. It may not be only the BYJU'S of the world, but there may be other streams which may be looked into. So I think post-COVID there are two ways to only look at in a very short way. One is the sectors where you believe because of COVID situation you need to give some benefits, because those are the sectors which has become a bit new, whether it's say online pharma or online healthcare or online education or online agro selling, etc. Or it can be some of the sectors where there was a massive problem, like the hospitality sector or maybe the food sector or restaurant sector, etc. Where so either way you can decide that which sectors you want to put it in which way, and you can always start with a view which can be scalable considering the time of from immediate future of just couple of amount to moving high. So I think that's what. So, and obviously we should not get too much distress with the COVID times, because this has also given opportunities, as you have observed, that some of the massive deals, mega deals in India, because I restrict myself to India more, the mega deals of Reliances, the mega deals of BYJU'S, all has happened in India, which possibly may not have happened in non-COVID time also, because this was all the uniqueness of the, you can say, the product and services under which sector they are there. So I think that makes a difference, and we have to be very careful to see that there are options and opportunities across. But yes, I agree completely with Abhijit that start small, don't try to get into massive things, and you will succeed.
There are a couple of more questions, Mr. Lionel.
Hi, Hi, Mr. Abhijit, and hi, Mr. Subhashish. Thank you for your time, first of all. It was a great session. So I have a query here, or I have a thought here. So I would like to know both of your views on the online courses that have been offered of late. If you see, since people are back at home and they are maybe the experts of those particular industry or field, and they have started creating their own courses and they have been offering it. So what are your views? Probably they might add some value to the normal people who want to start up, or might add value to the micro and small medium enterprises. So what are your thoughts on that, about this industry that is booming? Is it really a marketplace that can be explored and can be made as a business idea, or can be explored more? So your ideas on that, or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, quickly, can I respond in a very, very small practical way, since I was kind of touching this industry for last couple of months or maybe a year. See, one thing is very important to understand, that yes, this industry is going to have a different outlook altogether, but there is something amiss. And that is my personal view. The miss is that I can see everybody is trying to get into this. As somebody said, I think Abhijit said that, you certainly cannot become BYJU'S and White Hat JRs immediately. But yes, there is a possibility of moving because the world will change from now onwards to the next couple of years or maybe permanently, that there will be ability of so-called online education, which is like a class education. But the miss is that possibly the requirement of the actual teachers and actual content providers who are actually there in the system are not getting utilized in the right way, or even if they are getting utilized, some of the schools, colleges and universities are literally using them at a highest level to extract pound of flesh, which is, so I think there is a challenge there. But yes, I think this is one area which has to be done with massive intelligent collaborations with possibly the institutes, with possibly the education systems which is already working, and do not start something totally new. That is my thinking. But yes, this is one area which has to be looked very, very innovatively, like some of the sectors which has come up, and this will move on. But the collaborations, the kind of way you want to go ahead, the kind of people you want to require to start with, etc., will be very important.
Perfect. Great insights. Thank you so much, Mr. Subhashish.
Yeah, so let me just quickly give my point of view as well. Like I said, see, it's about, are you really passionate about it? Because again, what your question basically says is that there is a market. Yes, I agree there's a market. I'm extremely passionate about the things that I am part of, right? That's the way I speak, right? I'm sure it's obvious. And I have been to IITs and IIMs, and I have taught people how to write, not even marketing, but how to write things, right? And I know there's a market for that, and I can get paid really well for that. But is that something you really want to do? Or is that something that you want to do only because there's a market today? Because if there's always going to be a market, does it fit your idea of a dream business? Is that something that when you pass away, whenever it happens, will you be proud in your dying stages that this is the problem you solved with all your honesty? Because a lot of startups begin and the founders don't have conviction. They think it's a marketplace, so let's sell something. That's not going to work. So if you're really passionate about online education, only then should we enter this. Otherwise, don't do it.
Okay.
Mr. Lanu, please mute. Thank you. There's a question from Mr. Dipesh Agarwal to Mr. Abhijit. Please suggest to start a business, what are the basic things need to be remembered?
He says to start a business, what are the basics? Yeah, I think I've already mentioned. Look, so okay, so today so quickly let me give an example of this. I'm going to talk about 5 different businesses, and all 5 have opportunities. And some of them you may not know anything about, but there's an opportunity there, right? For a long time, and I've been part of the fashion space for a long time. The garments that are used in India, the clothing that we give to our children, it doesn't meet the same quality standards as the garments that we export. I have worked with factories that manufacture products for India market as well as for US market, and they undergo completely different testing standards, right? It's a big opportunity if you really want to be a brand that talks about high quality baby wear, absolutely safe, no lead, no heavy metal, no bad colors, the baby skin will be safe, etc., etc. No brand is talking about it. Even baby wear brands don't talk about it. If you want to tap into this, that's a business idea I'm giving you right? One more business idea is that a lot of old products that we are not yet willing to sell. It could be an old fridge, an old cupboard. We can refurbish them, and sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. But if I tell you that here is a business that can refurbish your old fridge, make it as good as new for 800 rupees or 900 rupees, I am betting that there will be thousands of people in the first month itself who will take that up. That's a great business opportunity. Nobody is doing it. Urban Clap doesn't do it. They repair things, but they don't refurbish products. Great business idea, right? A third business idea, people today are looking for a lot of services that Urban Clap doesn't cater to, right? Make a list of all the services like that and make something which is not the same as Urban Clap. The Urban Clap takes care of X, you take care of Y minus X. And that's, again, a great business idea, right? A fourth business idea, I already mentioned this, but in the digital marketing space, there are brands that are dying to be on digital, but they don't know anything about it. These brands will generally go to either incompetent people, or they will go to very expensive and incompetent people. And here's a great opportunity for you. You can very, very easily identify one niche that you are going to be great at And it need not be digital marketing, it can be content creation, it can be anything, right? And help brands do that and start small. And that's again a great business opportunity. And the fifth idea I'm going to tell you is do what Elon Musk did 25 years ago. Start something like Zip2. I'm sure there are chemists in your locality. There are chemists in my locality. There are grocery stores. These stores are not the same as Grofers, and they're not the same as MetLife. These are local standalone stores that are currently losing customers really rapidly for two reasons. People don't buy offline enough because of COVID, and number two, because Grofers and MetLife will give you discounts that these guys cannot. Can you leverage local marketing? And local marketing, there are many ways of doing it. Apart from digital marketing, there are many other ways of doing it. Can you build a network, maybe a club in your own locality? Maybe a collective of 50 stores that sell everything from chalk to cheese, and see if people in a locality want to subscribe to that. I know that in my locality, there are 8 chemist shops. Only one of them gives an 18% discount, but that particular guy doesn't get any additional traction. I've spoken to that guy. I buy my medicines from that person. The person says, "Mera maal utna bikta jitna kisi aur ka bikta hai," because he doesn't advertise, he doesn't talk about it. These are some opportunities that are dying to get traction. And unfortunately, because everyone wants to build the next Uber, we are missing these opportunities. Again, you don't have to be a Arabpati if you can be a crorepati. That's the answer.
Thank you so much, Abhijit. My next question to Mr. Subhashish. Sir, can you list down 2 to 3 pinpoint detail on why startups fail?
Yeah, quickly. What is
3 pointers?
Yeah, so just the quick 2-3 pointers. Number one, the basic requirement of the product and service which was required or not. That is the first point, that you may have entered in an area which was given examples during our discussions that you are possibly a Me Too and just thinking that your Me Too will work. So whether you have scanned it purposely to have a brilliant, passionate, newer idea with a new market, that is part one. The second more important part is the environment in which locality or area you are trying to start the business. So in a Chennai or Kerala, it's a completely, just now today morning, I read a Kerala group who was doing only condiments and spices could get a Norwegian guy to invest 2,000 crores in his. So have you ever thought of that, the cardamoms also? So I think it depends on the location, environment, what you want to do. It can be totally different insight in Mumbai and Delhi, and it can be totally different if you are in Kerala or in Agra or UP. So that is the second part. And the third part, of course, is the scalability and scale itself, that you have to ensure the business profitability from day one, kind of, in the sense that your cash flow and things cannot go in for a loss for a period of time where you end up suddenly saying that I put the entire investment, things didn't improve. So I think these three has to be the main pitfalls you have to there. Apart from that, obviously, I'm assuming you are doing the entire analysis of the ROI, the requirements of the market, of the marketing, digital, and all the other basic things of a business.
Any other questions from the participants?
Yeah, hi, Saurabh. My name is Nitin. I'm from the business team of Exotalent. I want to thank both the gentlemen, Subhashish and Abhijit. It was very valuable, very insightful, and a lot of takeaways. However, I have a question which is a little different to, somehow complementary, but yes, I want to ask. That's going on, since I joined the session.
Please.
We think India is a very big market, but I think India is a small market with a very big potential. The reason I'm saying that, there are a lot of ideas in each and every nook and corner in India, which are dying every day because they are not connected to the investors, right? So I think something like a Mitti Cool, if you have heard of it. So there are thousands who have these kinds of ideas we are not even aware of it. But a lot of people who are very brilliant, they are not MBAs, they are not tech savvy, they don't have apps, and they are not connected to the mainstream investors. Is the government doing enough? Can something be done? Is there a platform where these people can enjoy the legacy of having some investment, because the ideas are brilliant. However, they cannot be in Bangalore or Mumbai or Pune, but they are in tier 3 cities. So how do you think, can we call them, maybe can there be a platform where these guys can come in, or maybe we can be pick and choosy and connect to the investors? Is there something, some via media, some bridge for them, or somebody is thinking on those lines? That's my question.
Yeah, Nitin, very unique and intelligent question. I can just quickly brief you. I'm sure Abhijit will have some thoughts, but I can quickly tell you that as of now, let us keep the government aside, because I'm honestly not comfortable that what they want to give and how they want to give and what they want to give. Assume the industry which has been, I mean, whether honestly it was Tata's or Reliance or Oyos or anybody, everybody has come up from their own kind of. So let us be very careful about it. So considering that, I think it's your question itself is a brilliant idea, which comes to me today, that if we can collaborate with some of the private sector and make, and already I know one or two big groups, without naming, I can tell you one of the ex-directors of Tata has floated an investment group like similar to this, except that some of the points are a bit different than what Nitin you are saying. And the same thing he's trying to do, that he is having a patch of the amount and he is willing to give it to the all levels of people, and to work out and where there is, he is himself in his own business plan, you can keep a so-called P&L in your own way, because it's like a VC fund, but here you have to make a collaborative approach. Somebody independent comes in and pitches in for a ability of funding, which goes a practical way of meeting an implementation program as a partner of it, and also to ensure that the funding is there. So it is a brilliant idea, Nitin, from your side. Honestly, we should look into it and maybe have a collaborative approach to the industry at large, and make a plan for investment plus implementation for those unique, intelligent people who are across the world, and today, across the country. And today, as you know, and I think Abhijit rightly said, and we are all aware, the kind of so-called business which you see in, I won't use the startups, the business which you see in Europe or American markets, etc., which is every second house can do a business and we are not. And because we believe that, it started with the legacy of that we just wanted the government jobs and so-called bank jobs. Even I started my career as a bank manager long back. And I thought that what is this? So I think there was a legacy which has to come out, and this is a brilliant idea. I think we should think of this. It can be done. It may not be there in the proper fruitful way, but there are one or two groups which are there, but this can be done. The group sitting there right now with Ganesh, Nitin, and all of you, we can think and work out something, and there can be, everybody will be willing who are become a successful business themselves, whether it is Oyos and Paytms and other groups all together. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Subhashish sir. Thank you so much. I would now request Mr. Ganesh to come up for the closing speech.
Thank you so much, Subhashish. Thanks, Abhijit. I have a question. I was hearing and listening, everybody. So, question to Abhijit: why most of the unicorns are based at US and China? Approximately 80 to 85% of unicorns are based at China and US. Why not India, or why not developing countries? What do you think? Where we are going wrong? So this is related to the topic, and I would like to definitely hear from you guys.
I will give a very biased answer. Right? Very biased because it is my point of view. Right? In India, almost everything that can go wrong in how startups function, how businesses function, goes wrong. Right? Peter Thiel, right? Peter Thiel is PayPal, he is the one who mentored Ritesh Agarwal, who hired me a few years back. And this guy says, I don't want to hire MBA types, right? So I hope MBAs here don't get offended, but sir is also an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, but he knows what I'm talking about. When Peter Thiel says, I don't want MBA types, he's talking about a certain kind of a person who believes in doing things a certain way. I will not go into the details of it, because anyone who has made mindless presentations, which I have, when I have worked in the FMCG sector, so I know how those presentations look like. And not that those are not effective, but the nimbleness of it all, it's somehow lost. You are making too many plans, not really executing them. And that's what Peter Thiel means by MBA types, right? And Elon Musk, on the other hand, also says, I don't want to do some internet business, right? So I think this pretty much sums up the whole thing. In India, we want to do an internet business and we want to hire MBA types, right? So again, we have to go back to the power of how business ideas can really take off. We're not doing that enough. And okay, I don't want to say anybody, I don't want to point it out, but certain startups that have been named, even by me, are not really successful, right? Who says Paytm is a successful startup? I want to like question that whole logic of the only way a startup can be successful is by generating profits over a period of time. And I won't go technical, but the CAC, the CAC, the customer acquisition cost, and the LTV, the lifetime value that the customer adds to you, it's a very basic mathematical equation. Most of the companies we have spoken about, including Uber, including Oyo, including Paytm, that equation still hasn't worked out for them. Even for Amazon, it hasn't worked out so far. So they are not really successful. They have been successful in generating PR, giving employment to people, making some dreams come true. Their employees definitely are richer. A lot of small businesses have benefited. A lot of drivers have jobs because of Uber. But is on its own, is that generating profit? Based on what I have seen, it's not. I'll again come back to that. See, getting $10 billion in investment and churning out $6 billion in revenue, that's not a business, right? In America or in any other country where startups exist, and I can talk about the company I was part of, Pernod Ricard. It's an alcohol company. In the liquor industry, alcohol is alcohol. So the alcohol that we used as children in the chemistry lab is exactly what we drink, diluted to 40% weight by water, right? It's the beauty of marketing that alcohol, which could be worth 50 rupees, also sells for 2,000 rupees, right? Now, imagine the person who first thought of that idea, that I will pour alcohol into a wooden cask. The cask will give colors to that alcohol. It will give some fragrance, and I'll add some artificial coloring to it, and I'll sell something worth 50 rupees for 2,000 rupees. And if I do it in Scotland, I call it Scotch, and I sell it for 4,000 rupees. I mean, you really have to be innovative to that level. And I think in India, we are taking it in a completely different direction. We are obsessed with building websites and apps and some internet business and claiming certain things that will not really give you profit over a period of time. I don't know how else to put it without naming and shaming individuals, but that's what's wrong. We are trying to take it way too easy. We think startups are sexy. It's not so. I work at BrainPan, and I can tell you this. Yeah, at BrainPan, at a time when COVID led to people getting fired, my company BrainPan hired 3 people, right? Not even a single junior or middle resource got a salary cut. The leadership team took at times 100% pay cuts, and that's what leadership teams should do, right? But not even a single middle or junior professional in the company lost even a paisa of salary, right? I am proud of that fact, but how many companies are actually doing it today? Right? So I just want to leave with this vague thought. I know it's very subjective. It's heavily biased based on what I believe in, and everyone will have a different answer. But I really think that this is what is going wrong. We hire based on pedigree. We hire based on what college somebody is from, and we think somehow magically they will know everything that there is to know, without experience, without exposure. We give too much benefit of doubt to a learning curve. Yes, learning curves are great, and some people learn really fast, but it doesn't always happen, and things do break, right? We have to stop thinking of ourselves as superheroes. We are not. We are, at the end of the day, we are people trying to get money from other people. It's as simple as that. What can I do for that person? क्या मैं उनके बाल काट सकता हूँ? क्या मैं उनकी गाड़ी चला सकता हूँ? And those are businesses. And if you do it in a more swanky fashion, you are Uber and Urban Clap, right? To do it even more swankily, you could be, I don't know, maybe a 5-star hotel, right? That's all there is when it comes to. Obviously, there are organizations, there are initiatives that function like companies. The writing platform I have has 1 million followers, all organic. I create content, I get 10,000, 20,000 engagements. So that's not a business. I don't call it a business. I say I'm a founder of that, but it's not a business. I will never make money from that, nor do I want to. It's very important that we kind of understand this. I unfortunately, it's very biased, but that's what it is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now over to you, Ganesh.
Yeah, thank you so much, Subhashish and Abhijit, and all participants for joining this session. It was very insightful. I'm sure, if anybody is looking out to start new startup or a business, to be precise, to be corrected as suggested by Abhijit.
You're on mute, Yanesh.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was on mute. I was speaking.
No.
Yeah, thank you so much, Subhashish and Abhijit, for a wonderful session. And we have understood that we are not startup. We are having a business or starting a business, right? So that is a takeaway what I take. Yeah. And I would like to thank all the participants. And to conclude on, please come and visit our application, that is Link CXO. It is majorly for senior leaders where they can come, connect, collaborate, and generate business opportunities for each other. So thank you so much, Abhijit, Subhashish, Saurav, and all participants. And have a wonderful weekend ahead. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Yanesh, Saurav, Abhijit, everybody. All the best. Thanks.
Thank you.